very good morning to you. Thank you for staying here on the AM show with Benjamin and Bernice. It's now time for us to get into the other leg of our big stories, and we are speaking to former Lands and Natural Resources Minister Inusah Fuseini. He's also a very important member of the NDC, former member of Parliament for Tamale Central. How are you doing?
I'm good.
How's life outside Parliament?
Well, it's good. I mean, you get to
no stress.
You get to control your whole life. You determine what you want to do, and you take things slowly. I mean, so you are not under stress. Yeah. Interesting.
I'd like to start with. I know we'll be getting into the NDC's leadership in Parliament, because Parliament has resumed, and you were one of the key persons who spoke about that decision to change leadership. But let's start with this other one that happened in Parliament, with the Speaker announcing the reshuffle by President Akufo-Addo. There have been calls for him to do this. Is this what you were expecting?
Not at all. I mean, this reshuffle, that's why it's not excited, I mean, a lot of people in this country. I mean, if a team is playing in a derby or a tournament, and some players are not performing well, or some players have been injured and need to be replaced, is the expectation that you bring people who are more competent, who at least can meet the expectation of Ghanaians. I mean, this reshuffle doesn't inspire anybody.
Are you questioning the competence of the people we see here? For example, Kobna Tyrant Mohammed, Katie Hammond, Brian Champong, Mohammed Amin Adam. Are you questioning the competence of these people?
Brian Champong, Amin and the others, apart from Katie Hammond and Stephen Amoa, were part of the government, not so? And the performance of the government has been abysmal. And so what new are they bringing to the ministry? I mean, to the various ministries they are being sent to? I mean, do you see the dynamics? I mean, for Amin Anta, I even question why he should be sent to the Ministry of Finance. I mean, he's not a finance person, you see? And we are in critical times. You need people to think outside the box, try to get us out of the doldrums. So why are you moving somebody who has expertise in energy to the Ministry of Finance when we are dealing with the debt, the domestic debt issue?
Could it be linked to the gold for oil deal, trying to see how we could, work that out from that angle as well? Because we all know Mr. Amin Adam to be an energy person, rightly put, but does it take away his ability to work as minister designate
you are taking,
of state?
You are taking somebody who has expertise in energy to a Ministry of Finance just because you want that fellow to help you deal with the gold for oil.
That has not been said. I am saying, could it be? Probably. Well, but what for you would have been an exciting reshuffle?
For me, for Minister of Finance, I thought that the president should have reached out to Asibe Yeboah. I worked with him in Parliament. He's a sharp brain. He knows exactly, he has some understanding of why we have gotten to where we are. And he has proffered solutions. In fact, he was the first to talk about Ghana going to the IMF from the MPP side, when almost everybody was saying that no, that was not a feasible outcome. He said, look, we are almost crashing, and so if we don't get to the IMF for external support, we might go bankrupt. And he's spoken. When the Minister of Finance sought to impose their wishes on the people of Ghana in terms of how to deal with the debt, domestic debt, he said, no, you can't compel the people because this is a voluntary agreement. And so you must engage the people, engage the stakeholders. He also spoke about setting up a stabilization fund to be able to deal with those who are on the fringes, so that the burden, the difficulty, the hardship that is going to befall the people by reason of the program will be mitigated somehow. And so I thought that if the president was well-intentioned, he should have looked at such people and bring new expertise, new insights into how we go about managing our debt in this country.
Since you earlier hinted on competencies, let's look at Katie Hammond. You've worked with him in Parliament. Some of your colleagues have referred to him as a very interesting character. Murtala Mohammed, for example, is wondering if he will be able to work with Stephen Amoah. He describes the two personalities as having very interesting temperaments. But Katie Hammond in the Ministry of Trade, are you convinced that he will be able to do a good job there?
Well, I worked, like you rightly said, I've worked with Katie Hammond for a very long time in Parliament. I mean, I was close to him in Parliament. I've watched him when he was Deputy Minister of Energy at the Ministry of Energy. He don't know how to assess him. I know he's a rabid a politician. Sometimes he says things that are politically incorrect. But then, I don't know what has gone into. You can't question where a president has a discretion to nominate people to offices. You can't question the exercise of that discretion, can you? Except that we will be watching closely how the Katie Hammond performs in office.
Interesting. So we'll move on to other matters. We'll see how it turns out for them. But still in Parliament, yesterday we saw the leadership of the minority belonging to the NDC, the party you belong to, put forth this new leadership. At the time the news broke, you were one of the people who was spoken to on how it went about, whether or not it was necessary. But there's just one question that I think has not been really explored or responded to. And the question is that, would we have seen a change in that leadership if the party's executives were maintained?
I'm unable to tell. I mean, if you speculate, assume.
Isn't this happening because the new chairman, Asiedu Nketia, and the new leadership cannot work with Haruna Idrisu?
No, I don't think so, because Asiedu Nketia was the general secretary of the party when Haruna Idrisu was the minority leader. Indeed, I still recall that in 2017, it was Asiedu Nketia who came to Parliament to inform us that the party had decided that Haruna Idrisu be the minority leader, Aveji be his deputy, Muntaka be the whip, Ahmed be the deputy whip, and Doyo. So we were informed. It was the party that took the decision. It was the lot of Asiedu Nketia to communicate that decision to us in Parliament.
Well, I appreciate that you say it was his job to communicate, but at the time, was he really in agreement with it? Because even we heard from the new General Secretary this time announcing it. But the reason I'm asking this is that it's interesting, the timing, midstream Parliament's tenure, i.e. the 4-year term of every government. And this hasn't happened before midstream, right? And it's also because your party has changed leadership midstream. And that's why I'm trying to build the correlation.
Yeah,
is that not...
So it's a coincidence, okay? And
coincidence?
That coincidence is interesting, not so. It's an interesting coincidence. So people I mean, can latch onto the coincidence and come up with all other permutations and prognosis of why the change happened. But this is a party that is looking at 2024. The party is taking strategic decisions along the line. You can see a manifestation of the strategic decision of the party and the generality of members of the party in the recently held Congress. I was here in your studio, sitting at this particular place, when the drama and the change in leadership was unfolding. And you could see that the party, the generality of the party, the grassroots, the delegates had decided that certain crop of people must take the leadership of the party. And so strategic decisions are taken by the party at any time. And for us, as a party, and I've since looked at the communication from the Council of Elders, for us as a party, you don't have to look over your shoulder to see exactly why we took that decision. Okay, was it in terms of the activities, the conduct, of the past executives or leaders of the party in parliament. For us as a party, we're looking forward. We're looking to see how we can strategically position our caucus in parliament to meet the reasonable and legitimate expectations of the people of Ghana, to win the minds and hearts of the people of Ghana, to show that we are the better alternative, to show that we are poised for victory in 2024.
So was this just about, as some have suggested, communicating a certain character of the party to take hard decisions when it comes to reshuffling, because we know that there have been calls, well, up until yesterday we heard of this reshuffling by the president, that the president must make certain changes. Key amongst them was the Minister of Finance, who some members of his own party in Parliament had called for saying. So this is just about what, communicating that you're a stronger side, you can do, you take some of these hard decisions.
This is just communicating that when it comes to taking decisions, we will take them. We'll not shy away from decision taking. I mean, people have spoken about timing. The concept of time admits of many variables before you can come to the conclusion that this is the proper time to make an announcement. I mean, people have argued that the NPP was reeling, that the scandals were many, and that Ghanaians were chewing on the scandals, and that our reshuffle gave some respite to the NPP. I say, beg to differ. The scandals in the NPP aren't going away, are they? But the NDC had the decision to make. And you don't postpone the making of that decision because your opponent is reeling. We're going to go to Congress on the 13th of May. Even on that day, if there is the mother of all scandals happening in this country, we'll go to Congress. We'll go. And so it's about taking decisions when decisions have to be taken and not postponing the decisions. I mean, because if you postpone the decision, you lose the momentum to put the party on a good footing for what is ahead.
Interesting. Let's talk about how the party handled the aftermath of this issue. So we saw some members in Parliament hold a press conference saying that they wanted the party to engage further and consider their position on the matter. We also heard at the time from KC Latroforson, who then was not leader because he wasn't sworn in and the Parliament had not resumed, but speaking about what his agenda was. And there was a lot of ripple effects after that. We heard from executives and all that, even NECBET, like you mentioned. But it appears that it was once again the intervention of John Dramani Mahama that calmed the two sides. It appears. Isn't the party losing its hold to the former president? Then again, I'm saying that because I know he's a member of the party, a strong one as such as former president. But when the issue of violence happened during the party's elections in Cape Coast for the youth organizer and the women's organizer, once again, it was John Dramani Mahama. It appears that he has certain powers that the executive doesn't even have when it comes to solving matters of these kinds.
But this should not surprise you, my dear. John Dramani Mahama is the only surviving president of the NDC in this country. So
that gives him a lot of power above the executive members, does it?
So if we are talking about former presidents, living former presidents in this country of the NDC, it's John Dramani Mahama. It is the coincidence of events that have put him in that position. So it's a key figure in the NDC. Now, John Dramani Mahama is also the presumptive leader of the party for the 2024 elections.
Are you using leader and flag bearer interchangeably?
So let me explain.
No, but please answer the question first.
By the NDC, if I explain, you understand. By the NDC constitution, when the party is in opposition and has not yet, elected its flag bearer, the chairman of the party is the leader of the party.
Right.
When the party is in power, the president is the leader of the party. When the party elects its flag bearer, the flag bearer becomes the leader of the party.
So by what you've said, Asiedun Ketia is
the leader of the party, presently as we speak.
Okay, so how does former President Mahama become the presumptive leader then, if there is an existing leader, per what you've just explained?
Presumptive leader in the sense that if he's elected, or when, let me say when, because he will be, when he is elected leader of the party, he takes the mantle from Asiedun Ketia.
I mean, you say this with such confidence. Isn't this putting, isn't this an unfair statement to make, considering there are people who put up their heads to...
No. I'm just being realistic. That if we look at the last primaries of the NDC, John Dramani Mahama got 95% of the votes across the country.
And you're saying that in 4 years that couldn't change?
In fact, he's since grown in popularity. I will not be surprised if he gets 98%.
But is he the best the party can put forward?
In the circumstances, John Dramani Mahama is the best. In fact, I have said it elsewhere, and I'll say it here. In fact, it appears to me that we are even lucky to have John Dramani Mahama showing interest in the leadership of the party. Why? John Dramani Mahama was the president of this country from 2013. In fact, from June 2014, when President Atamils passed on, to 6th of January 2017, John Dramani Mahama undertook several developmental projects in this country. He also initiated a lot of policy that came under severe criticism. His policies were so ridiculed, and he himself was so bastardized that he lost favor with the people of this country. And this government was brought in. Apparently, what he was doing was stabilizing this country and putting the country on a very solid ground, terra firma. Some decisions that he took, on hindsight, the MPP has come to accept that they were good decisions.
Like
allowances for teacher trainees and
I'm not sure they've considered because they revised that decision and they're given allowances to the.
So they revised the decision. Okay, they revised the decision, but you are aware that when trouble started coming to us, one of the things that they considered was whether or not it was at all feasible to continue to pay allowances. Okay, we had said that, look, we support free senior high school system, but it's not everybody in Ghana who is poor. So why don't you use the Ghana Standard Living Survey, determine those who are poor and so cannot take care of their wards in school, then extend the scholarship to them instead of doing a wholesale implementation of free senior high school. Today, this free senior high school is under review. We have said many things.
Well, you're telling me it's under review because I recently spoke to the Minister of Education and I put that question to him. It doesn't appear to me in his response that it has really been reviewed, unless there's something you know that he didn't tell us.
The Minister of Education also said that the schools that you described as schools of shame were actually schools of fame.
So he explains that he was taken out of context and that he was making reference to the students who were at the G-STEP program who had innovated or invented appliances and devices to solve problems. He was describing them as schools of
We,
thinking.
I would not be surprised if he says that, well, maybe you are reporting him out of context.
Okay, so focusing on John Dramani Mahama again, because like you mentioned, we are in 2023, you're hoping to set the ground, set the tone for campaign in 2024, looking forward to elections. Who will be his running mate? Do you know?
I don't know. It's the exclusive right of the flag bearer.
But who can or who should?
There are
be
many
considered?
people who can, but the person who is in pole position is Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman. Yes, in pole position because she ran last time with him. And she garnered 6 million votes together with John Dramani Mahama. And so she's in pole position.
Interesting. Are you hoping to come back into active politics? Do you hope to work with John Dramani Mahama if he wins the 2024 elections?
Well, I'm working with John Dramani Mahama. I'm working with the party to ensure that the party is properly positioned to win the election 2024. Wherever I am, I'm working for that. And that is me because I am NDC. I mean, and the politics of perception is important. That for us as a people, anywhere we are, because we are members of the party, we must conduct our affairs in such a way that we win the admiration of many more people, not for ourselves, but for the party. Did
you leave Parliament because you have bigger political ambition?
No, I didn't. I left Parliament because it's like reading a book. If you don't finish reading the last chapter of the book, you aren't going to turn to the next chapter. So for me, I thought, and I rightly believe, that my life's chapter on Parliament was over. I had finished reading it.
What were the indicators that made you believe so?
Well, first of all, I had been in Parliament for close to 16 years. I had seen the people who were contesting me in the 2016 elections. All those who contested me were far my juniors. In fact, some were of my son's age. Clearly, there was a generational change that I need to continue to be doing political battles with people who were the age of my children. I just thought that, no, the people, the configuration of the contestants was communicating to me that it was time to move on. And I moved on.
So that was the most important indicator for you?
That was the most important indicator for me.
When you set out as a young man to enter politics, what was your dream? To specifically being a member of Parliament, and would you say that you were able to achieve that even to 80 or 90%?
Well, I will leave that for the people to judge.
No, but I'm talking about
but
your personal
my
goal.
My personal dream was to be a useful, responsible, and contributing member to the community I serve. And that was the Tamale Central constituency. And within the period that I was in Parliament, I had affected their lives in various ways. Now, I come from a family that produced the first graduate in me. So I thought that one of the things or the legacies that I could leave was to make sure that a greater number of people had access to education. But the only reason why I was serving my people was because I had been given an opportunity to go to school. So if you go to the Tamale Central constituency, there is no ward in the constituency that you will not see my footprints. So infrastructure-wise, I did deliver a lot. I even also touched the lives of many people who were distressed, whether they could not pay the school fees of their children, they were in hospitals. In fact, at a point, I collaborated with the surgeons, West African College of Surgeons, to go to Tamale and operate on goiter and other sicknesses and diseases that were afflicting my people. You know, and in Parliament, my single most important focus was that I should not be lost in Parliament. I should not just come to Parliament, and when I leave Parliament, I'm forgotten. And I think that I achieved that to a very large extent.
Now, back to NDC politics. I don't know if you've seen that video of your youth organizer Fuseini, which has been trending. The party's communications person, Sammy Jainfi, has released a statement. But I just wonder why politicians always have to equalize. So he starts the statement by admitting that the party has seen that video. He asks that the police should pardon him because he misspoke. That is, the youth organizer Fuseini misspoke, and what he sought to convey did not come out as intended. So those are just the two first lines of the statement. The rest is equalization and talks about how it's hypocritical for the police, you know, to come out with this when they didn't do that to a certain NPP person. Couldn't we, or couldn't the party just have apologized and say, look, he misspoke, we apologize, and then go on to encourage other party members to desist from making. Do we need to equalize? What's it with NDC and MPP and always trying to equalize?
So you say what the youth organizers said is a symptom of the underlying problems in our democratic dispensation. Now, when you have impunity taking center stage in the delivery of democracy, when people cannot be held accountable, and accountability is very important in any democratic dispensation, then people will be emboldened to say things that are clearly not welcomed. So you can see the statement by the youth organizer Fuseini as evidencing frustration, as showing lack of confidence in the political system to ensure what our motto says, freedom and justice. Because if people have been hard done by in the last elections and they cannot get justice for that.
But does it justify what the youth organizer said?
But what justifies it? Tell me, how will you respond to such a situation? You throw your hands in the air? Well, how will you justify?
Do you incite violence as well?
How do you justify that? How do you justify that people have been treated badly, people have been killed, and absolutely nothing, not even the president, has acknowledged that 8 people lost their lives? How do you expect the people of this country to respond? How do you expect the up-and-coming youth to respond? What are you communicating to them? I mean, if you had arrested those people and dealt with them, you restore confidence in the people of this country that anybody who takes the law into his own hands will be dealt with. You discourage impunity. But if you leave people to their whims and caprices, where people can take the law into their own hands and behave as they wish, what do you expect? So what the youth organizer said is a reflection of the decay in our political system. And the earlier we started looking at it, the better. Well, some will say he shouldn't have said that. That's why our youth organizer, our director of communications has said that he misspoke and drew attention to the decay, the malice in our democratic system. We should be prepared as a country to hold people accountable for their actions. And it is only when we do that that we will prevent people. It will no longer be an incentive for anybody to advocate taking the law into his own hands.
Let's talk about the domestic debt exchange program now. The deadline has expired, but we know that a lot of individual bondholders haven't signed on to the program. In fact, the individual pension bondholders pensioner bondholders have been picketing the finance ministry since Monday. We are told that they'll be heading there today as well. It's quite a sad scene looking at some of them who are grey and old, holding placards and all that. The minister came out to meet them on Monday and explained the situation to them and said, look, Buame, namin sumembuao. But there are those who are saying that there is no point of Buame because government is not helping itself by cutting down expenditure, reducing the size of government, etc. One of the conveners for the individual bondholders from Senyor Husi is alleging that government is pressuring banks to coerce their customers to accept a domestic debt exchange. He said this is unethical and must be stopped immediately. We also know that government has given another window, even though the deadline expired, up to 4 p.m. on Friday. And this is because there were some technical glitches detected in the tendering process, according to the story in the Ghanaian Times. But what are your general concerns about the domestic debt exchange program and how it's been handled so far?
So my general concerns has been that the government has not been very honest with the people of this country. The government is dealing with the people of this country with a hard hand. The government, so many years ago, wanted patriotic Ghanaians to support it for the development of this country. People who had resources that they were not immediately in need of, gave those resources to government for the purposes of developing the country. The least that government can do is to recognize that these people served the country as patriotic citizens of this country. It has never been a criminal offense to give you what you have to the government for the purposes of developing your country on the promise that at a particular point in time, that offer, having been accepted, will be returned to you with interest. That's never been an offense. Now, government appears to be treating bondholders as if they were criminals. How do you tell bondholders?
Isn't that too extreme?
No, it's not extreme. I come to you. I need money. I've made some offers to you. You've accepted and made your money available to me. Without engaging you, I then tell you that I'm not going to give you interest.
Well, that has been revised. That has been revised.
Well, so how did government go about even considering how to engage bondholders on the domestic debt exchange program? That is the question. Because you see, if you knew that your finances were bad, that there was a high probability that you would default on payment, what do you have to do?
Well, this government says, look, it's been thrown, of course, COVID, the Russian-Ukraine war. And so this was not the plan. This was not what it expected. So government says it finds itself in a fix. The finance minister says we're in a crisis. If we do not ensure that we get this deal by March, we will crash our economy. So, I mean, that has been the narrative of government over the years.
And you believe the government?
That is what government says.
No, but you are an individual. You should believe the government or not believe the government. You believe the government?
That is what government says. And so it's appealing to individual
bondholders.
It's appealing
to... You believe a government that is going out on a borrowing spree, a government that was warned that the way and manner it was borrowing, it will make our debt unsustainable. You believe in a government that for all these years had not given the people of Ghana a debt sustainability report. You believe in a government that had gone to raid the stabilization fund and take monies because of COVID. You believe in a government that mismanaged the COVID funds of this country, that the government was taken by surprise. You mean the government did not know that the trajectory that it was pursuing will lead it to...
Well, the communication is that but for COVID and the Russian-Ukraine war, we won't be here.
Won't be where?
We won't be where we are with our economy. So
what is debt sustainability? Clearly means that when you borrow, you set aside monies to amortize the debt. What has Ukraine war got to do with it? Did we buy equipment from Ukraine that we cannot pay? We talk about COVID. Do you know the amount of money that we got from COVID and how the money was misused? In fact, the Auditor General's report is a report on how not to manage your accounts. And you still are citing that are reasons?
No, the excuse is that by government is that, you see, those were not normal times. And so
the normal times, because they were not normal times, you could pay as much as $120 million for vaccines and not receive them. Because we were not in normal times, you could pay monies without parliamentary approval to a sheikh in Dubai for Russian Sputnik V vaccines. You mean you could buy ambulances without, pay for ambulances without receiving them? You mean because we were in COVID, not in normal times, you could go and rent a property at Adaklu for 50 million Ghana cedis and renovate the property with 20 million Ghana cedis? Is that what you're saying? That not being in normal times means that you must be reckless?
It is what government is saying, not what I am saying. Interesting. So finally, on the domestic debt exchange program, the individual bondholders have been advised not to sign on to the program, but many of them are worried that it will not inure to their benefits. Others are also concerned about the terms. They say they want total exemption. It doesn't appear they're going to get it.
Well, I think that what is happening clearly shows that this government can take decisions. They don't know how to take decisions. And they are not only arrogant, they are also very intolerant. They are lazy sometimes. And the Auditor General's report shows that they are also corrupt. And so the people of Ghana do not believe them. Trust is an essential ingredient of governance in a country. The people of this country have lost trust in these people. And so they're not willing. They just want to see the thing put on the table and want commitments that will be binding on government because they've lost trust in the people.
We are wrapping up in 5 minutes. Let me just find out from you this story about Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who is a member of your own party, and his concerns about the Secretary to the Board of Trustees of the National Cathedral, Reverend Kwesi Boateng. You're also a lawyer. What are your, I don't know if you've gone through his concerns about the double identity, the issue with the tin and having multiple tins. There are those who try to use the law and in some cases, previous Supreme Court cases, to back why a person can have double identity.
The Supreme Court never said a person can have two IDs.
So I'm gonna allow you to respond to that.
Okay.
So what are your general concerns from the legal perspective?
Well, first of all, this case clearly calls for an investigation by the investigative bodies of this country, and especially the GRA must show extreme interest in this matter. Why will that person, the Board of Trustees, have two identification numbers, personal identification numbers, TIN numbers? Why? Why do we need TIN in the first place? Because the GRA wants to be able to track your transactions and be able to exact the appropriate tax that you ought to pay. That tax is revenue to the country. Why will a person have two TIN numbers that might make it difficult to track that person's transactions? What motivated him to go for two identities? Why? Now, So for me, there is more to it than meet the eye.
So you want further investigation?
Further investigations into why an individual will have dual personality. To what intent and purposes did he want to put that dual personality to use? And the Supreme Court never said you can have two identities. If those two identities are for a criminal purpose, then you will be held accountable.
Did you see the video of Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa seen? Well, we're told that he was kicking some writs that were given to him by bailiffs of the court. Have you seen that video?
I've not seen that video.
But how should court documents be treated?
That document, because Samuel Okudzeto is a member of parliament, the standing orders clearly provide a procedure by which a member of parliament can be served with a court proceeding.
So he's justified to
what I'm saying
reject
is
it in whichever form.
You can't serve him personally. You need to serve the speaker. You can't serve him. And again, I talk about impunity. A court clerk should not put himself in a position that will embarrass his office as a court clerk. And every court clerk knows that the way to serve a member of parliament has been provided in the standing orders. So why will you want to circumvent that to serve Okudzeto personally? Why would you want to do that?
But could he have handled it better, also seeing that he's a member of parliament, other than kicking the document on the floor? So for you, there's no case of contempt.
What I'm saying is that Lord Denny has said that when the process is not backed by law, when the process is illegal, whether by substantive law or by procedural law, you have to treat that process with contempt.
Is Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa a lone ranger, or do you know if the party is backing him in this course?
Samuel Okudzeto is not a lone ranger. Samuel Okudzeto is a dutiful citizen of this country. Samuel Okudzeto is working to uphold the laws of the country. He's a member of parliament. And what concerns him should concern all of us.
He's a member of the NDC, and I'm asking if the party is supporting him in this course, or he's a lone ranger.
First of all, you must establish that the duty and work that Samuel Okudzeto is doing in parliament will ultimately inure to the benefit of Ghana. If Okudzeto's revelations is able to establish impropriety, whether financial or otherwise, and corrective measures are taken, Ghana benefits from that.
Lastly, is the party supporting him in this course? Do you know or not?
I don't know. I have no reason to believe that if the party can support him, they won't.
Thank you for your time this morning.
You're welcome.
Inusah Fuseini, I beg your pardon, is former Lands and Natural Resources Minister, also a member of the NDC. We've been talking about the NDC's leadership in Parliament. We've been talking about the ministerial reshuffling. We've also been exploring what the future of the party is with regards to who the flag bearer could be or should be, and what the stakes are for the NDC there. Hopefully we'll be interacting more with him on this show, even as the party prepares to go for that primaries to elect persons who will be on the ticket of the party during the parliamentary elections in 2024. Let me say thank you to you once again.
You're welcome.
Thank you also for doing the watching. Well.